All right. Well, our first speaker, Abenido Baldonado, is a native New Mexican, and he earned his BA and in political science and his Master's of Public Affairs degree from Highlands University, just up the road. Before becoming the Education Reform Director for Think New Mexico, he taught government, economics, and history at a public New Mexico charter school and later chaired the governance board of that school. He has also served as an ethics officer for the Secretary of State, policy director for the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and as legislative liaison and policy analyst for the Public Education Department under both Republican and Democratic administrations. He spends his free time as a realtor in Santa Fe. Abenido has dedicated his career to serving all New Mexicans, building and maintaining relationships through transparency, communication, open-mindedness, integrity, and trust to develop and implement sound public policy. And I have to say, Abenido, that is just so league-like. So, Abenido.
Hello, Hannah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us today to present some of our initiatives that are happening at Think New Mexico. Most importantly, our new approach to education. And I'm excited to be Think New Mexico's first ever education reform director. And we're hoping to get a lot of great work done in the coming years. Today, I come to you with two initiatives that are important to Mexico as we go into the 2022 legislative session. One is personal finance as a graduation requirement, and the second is maximizing dollars to the classroom. To begin on financial literacy, when I joined the Think New Mexico team and this topic was brought up, I couldn't think of a better topic to advocate for. As a former student in traditional public school system and also a teacher in the public school system, it is imperative for us to provide our future workforce lifelong skills that are going to be important not only in the workforce but in post-secondary decision making. If they go to college, if they go to trade schools, if they just join the workforce, there's a certain set of skills, and I couldn't think of a more important skill than personal finance. Currently, New Mexico ranks 47th in overall financial literacy according to the personal finance website Wallet Hub. And a little background on financial literacy. Since 2008, financial literacy in New Mexico has only been offered as an elective, and only about 11% of eligible students currently enroll in the course. During the 2021 legislative session, Think New Mexico pushed a bill, House Bill 163, which would have made financial literacy a high school graduation requirement. It passed both House committees. It passed the House floor unanimously, and the Senate Education Committee, it passed unanimously as well. Unfortunately, the bill ran out of time awaiting a full vote of the Senate, but this was a bipartisan effort. It wasn't about political party, political ideology. In New Mexico, we know this is an important issue, and hopefully deliver it in 2022 for our students. Since joining Think New Mexico in July, one of the big initiatives has been to build a coalition of individuals who support this type of initiative to provide public comment, to endorse personal finance education within our public schools. And so we've been reaching out to different partners, and we hope the League of Women Voters also joins us as a endorsement as well for this initiative, because it's important to not only our state, our entire country in providing these skills to our students. Also, just a little bit of background, 2 New Mexico schools have already been recognized as gold standard by Next Gen Personal Finance. These 2 schools are Navajo Pines and Magdalena High School. They've made personal finance a requirement for their students prior to graduation. And so we're hoping that other schools will see that this can be done. Also, 17 states have made financial literacy, personal finance, a graduation requirement in the last decade, and 22 states total have adopted this requirement as well. According to the Council of Economic Education, New Mexico is one of only 5 states that lack personal finance standards. So, when we think about New Mexico, we always hear that, we're at the bottom of the list. And I think this is one issue that we do not want to be at the bottom. And so think New Mexico, we're really making this push to get this initiative done this upcoming year. And so, we talk about why personal finance education matters. And, some points are that 93% of students who take a personal finance class save money compared with 84% of those who have not. Also, 60% of students who have taken a class have a budget compared with 46% of those who have not. Also, 32% of students who have taken a class have invested money compared with 17% of those who have not. Also, adopting personal finance as graduation requirement, adopting qualitative standards can also serve as an anti-poverty strategy. We know that students will not only learn how to manage their own finances, but also teach their parents, their grandparents, and other family members about the lifelong skills they obtain from their coursework. So, given that New Mexico's current state, as far as economics go and our fight against poverty, this is one, it's not the silver bullet, but it's a component to really put up a fight against poverty in our state. And in doing so, I've been invited by the Council of State Governments to present on personal finance and what we're doing in New Mexico right now, trying to make this a graduation requirement. I'm excited to head up to Colorado Springs this afternoon and represent New Mexico and, chatting with legislators and key policymakers about why this is important to us in New Mexico. Shifting gears into our second initiative in education is maximizing dollars to the classroom. I was an educator once upon a time, and a little side story here, I didn't plan to become a teacher. I initially wanted to become a lawyer. The Think New Mexico team, who are mostly lawyers, have informed that I made a good decision by bypassing law school. So I feel reassured that I made a good decision and took a different path. But I'll tell you, becoming an educator not only, changed my perspective on many things, but it also helped me grow personally and professionally. And so one of Think New Mexico's reports in 2017 about maximizing dollars to the classroom, in their research, Think New Mexico found that administrative spending has outgrown classroom spending in the last decade. And, as a former educator, I've experienced these cuts, the lack of spending in the classroom. I've seen administrations grow far faster than the classroom. I always tell a story about the time I had a debit card given to me from the state for $100 to buy classroom materials. And anyone who's been a teacher knows that $100 doesn't get you very far in classroom materials. That maybe lasted maybe about a month, if not less. So oftentimes our teachers are forced to spend their own money in getting supplies and curriculum and different activities for their students. So our initiative right now is to start limiting administrative growth and spending. Think New Mexico has sponsored a bill. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get the bill passed, but it has been wrapped up into House Bill 2. Unfortunately, House Bill 2 is a one-year thing. And so every year we have to go back and try to get it in. So we're really trying to push to get this bill signed by the governor this upcoming year. And in her first campaign for governor, she supported this. She supported that, administrative spending has been very concerning to her and her campaign. And so we're hoping to get a lot of support from the governor's office on this initiative as well. But it's detrimental to really make impacts in education. Every year we're increasing the amount of education spending. And I think a lot of our legislators have mentioned that, we're still not seeing great outcomes. And so, oftentimes we're hearing that the money isn't getting to the classroom. By the time it's trickling down, there's pennies left for the classroom. So I think New Mexico is going to push a bill this upcoming legislative session that requires administrations to submit their budget request, but also explain their budget for the upcoming year, and ensuring that their administrative spending does not either go over, does not increase by the amount of the consumer price index or the increase in education funding for that year. For example, if the consumer price index has grown by 2% and state education funding has gone up 4%, administrations would be limited to the 2% growth in administrative spending. All others, additional dollars that come into the school district will be spent in the classroom. We've also thought about new schools that have been authorized, and oftentimes new schools are getting their feet under them and having to make decisions and where to spend money. And so we've created a 5-year grace period for any new schools that are created to not have to follow this requirement. So after 5 years, then they'll be limited to the administrative spending requirements. But as a former educator, this is important. This is, I think, with the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit and a lot of discussions about our student outcomes, it's time to make sure that the money gets to the classroom. I think my hometown, Las Vegas, New Mexico, has 2 school districts for such a small town that, if we consolidated those 2 school districts into 1 school district, the amount of savings that can be leveraged and used towards the classroom to support teachers, I think would be a great impact for the community. And so, oftentimes, and we know that, oftentimes school central administrative positions are a jobs program, and we understand that, but I think we also need to have the conversation that, we need more people in the classroom, we need more support services for students rather than the central administrative office. So that's where we're going in education right now. Also, to give you a little bit of background, I don't think this is going to be the last conversation we have in education. What Think New Mexico is planning to do. At the moment, we're starting to build a 10-year education initiative and try to identify what are some key projects that we can research and work on to create great policy for our state and for our students. And so I'll definitely be sure to let the League of Women Voters know immediately when we have a new initiative up and going. And hopefully it sparks some interest from your organization. And with that, I'm happy to field any questions. Oh,
thank you. We do have a couple of questions. If you have, what is your time limit here? Abenido?
No time limit.
Okay.
No time limit.
Okay, you're okay to answer. So first question was from Meredith Machen, and her question is, have you considered recommending the expanding role of the PEC so that it uses its constitutional authority to help improve educational outcomes generally, not just in state charter schools?
Well, that is something that I know has been a hot button issue. And I think PEC members have been very vocal about their positions and what the PEC can do. At this time, Think New Mexico hasn't looked into that issue, but it's definitely something that we can research and see if that would be beneficial for students and how that would work. And also see what other states are doing with their charter and traditional public schools.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from David Rice. His question is the IT cost of broadband online learning considered as in the classroom?
Absolutely. We think about rural New Mexico, and oftentimes the services that our students do not have in those areas. And so I would definitely say the money pushed towards broad internet is a classroom expense, because teachers, especially now during the pandemic, we've seen that they need to utilize broadband, they need to utilize internet. A lot of the instruction is still online, and without technology and without those resources, our students otherwise may be falling even further behind. So I would definitely say it does fall under a classroom expense.
Okay. Eileen Van Wee has a question. What is Think New Mexico's position on integrating multicultural education into all learning environments?
Yeah, we haven't taken a position on that issue. A little background on Think New Mexico. Our wonderful board of directors oftentimes dictate our work and our initiatives. And so we can't take a position on something that we haven't researched and hasn't been approved by our board of directors.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Do we have any other questions? Okay.
And, I just like to express to the League of Women Voters that, if there are some issues that are coming up in your communities, things that are keeping you at night, please feel free to send them my way, because we do want to create a long-term plan for education. And so if Think New Mexico receives, hey, maybe you should look into this, it's definitely something that we can look at, say, okay, is there great research out there that we can use to say, hey, maybe this needs to happen in New Mexico, and we can definitely take on that issue. So we're looking to grow our agenda. Our team doesn't want me drinking out of a fire hose just yet, so we're gradually moving into education, but I definitely know that in the next 3 to 5 years, our agenda will be very large, and we'll be taking on a number of issues, and so, which is exciting. I love this great state. I'm glad I never left. I'm glad I never went to law school, because I'm invested in New Mexico and our future here in New Mexico, which is our most precious resource, our students, and making sure that they stay here as well, just like me, and motivating them to invest in our great state.
Okay. Well, you have we have one more question. Carol Ann Armbruster says, what credentials does a teacher need to have to teach this financial literacy class?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm so sorry I left that out. So House Bill 163 that Think New Mexico pushed during the last legislative session was focused on creating a standalone personal finance class that would fall under a mathematics credit. Right now in New Mexico, there's 4 math credit requirements. And so what happened was it created this extra half credit to where it could conflict student scheduling. And so, looking back, this may have been a blessing in disguise, because my idea as a former government, economics, and history teacher, I believe that, we want to give our students meaningful instruction. And I think one way to do that with personal finance is tie it into economics, put it under social studies. Once a couple of states, Wisconsin and Colorado, implement personal finance studies from kindergarten through 12th grade. So it's not just a one-time course. We're gradually building students up every year of their educational career to be prepared financially for the future. So in 12th grade, that aha moment comes up of, oh my God, what I learned in 2nd grade, this is what it means in the bigger picture now before I go into the workforce or go to college. And so, we've shifted gears at Think New Mexico to really make this an economics and personal finance course. Any other states also do this as well. So there's already curriculum. I'd like to mention that Next Gen Personal Finance, who's ran by Tim Renzetta, he actually goes to the teachers and provides them professional development and for free. And he actually incentivizes teachers to take professional development course. And so I think may be a good opportunity for, and I taught economics for 12th grade. And I added in, I had the flexibility in my lesson planning to include personal finance because I thought it was important. And, students really need to be prepared for life after their education career. If they were going out into the workforce, they really needed to start thinking about this. So it can be done, and I think we just need to support our teachers. We need to give them these great organizations like Next Gen Personal Finance, Jumpstart, the Council for Economic Education. They provide a lot of tools and resources, curriculum, and innovative ways to teach personal finance and to teach it either as a standalone incorporated with economics. And so there are opportunities out there for our teachers to get qualitative professional development. And I think that's a great question.
Meredith has a follow-up question. If you could say more, please, about reducing the number of districts and reducing the overhead of charter schools.
Yeah. Well, with the maximizing dollars, we're not trying to reduce the number of districts. What we're trying to do is reduce the spending, the administrative spending in those districts to redirect those funds to the classroom. And, I think one of the examples is we want our school districts to really self-reflect and say, hey, do we really need that position, or can we use that $40,000 to $80,000 salary and use those funds to support teachers in the classroom? Can we get more educational assistants in the classroom to help our teachers? Can we, maybe pay teachers more? So there's a lot of opportunities here of how we can use those funds support our teachers and our students in the classroom. Can we get better instructional materials? And so that's the idea behind our maximizing dollars to the classroom, is that, we really want to say, does APS actually need 5 PIOs? Does Santa Fe Public Schools actually need 3 PIOs? These are funds that can be used in a better way in the classroom. And so that's really what we're trying to do. Our bills, that we're not trying to limit the districts, we're just trying to limit the amount of spending at the administrative level and redirect those funds to the classroom. And same for charter schools.
We have a question from Patsy Nelson, and she wants to know, what is the best way to provide input on other educational issues for Think New Mexico to consider?
Send me an email. Feel free to send me an email. If it's okay, Debbie, Hannah, please feel free to share my email with the entire organization. And if you ever have anything on your mind that's a hot button issue in your communities, please send it to us. We keep us busy. We want to research. We want to do great work. And that starts with listening to our stakeholders.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Does any...
I saw someone type my email in the chat, so I will do that really quick.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? So that he's placed his email in the chat for anyone who wants to reach Think New Mexico. April Gallegos also asked, does your plan to focus on more dollars in the classroom include teacher recruitment and retention plans?
Yeah, I think we want to make this flexible enough school districts to use those available dollars to decide how can they recruit teachers to their school district, to their charter schools, and fill those voids. Also stipend pay. There's a number of possibilities that districts can get creative with on how to attract and retain teachers at the school district level.
Okay. Do we have other questions? Okay. Do you want to introduce your associate who's going to talk about your initiatives?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, first and foremost, for having me today. I look forward to chatting with you all. I look forward to working with you in the future. If you're ever in Santa Fe, please stop by and visit us. I'd love to meet you in person. And hopefully one day, as we move forward in our education agenda, we can have these meetings in person and not have to worry about COVID anymore. And so I look forward to that day. I'd like to introduce you to Otiamba Umi. He's our field director for Think New Mexico, and he's going to give you a short presentation on some other initiatives that the League of Women Voters might be interested in.
Thank you, Abenido, and have a good travel. Hopefully we'll see you in the legislature, right? If not
Absolutely.
before.
I'll be sleeping there, so I'm sure you'll find me somewhere to attend.
Good. All right,
Thank you
wonderful.
all so much.
Great, thanks, Abe. All right, so thank you so much for having me. My name's Otiamba Umi. I'm the field director for Think New Mexico. Before working with Think New Mexico, I was an attorney. As Abenido mentioned, I worked at the DA's office in Albuquerque as an assistant district attorney. And so I've been with Think New Mexico for the past 7 years as the field director. I'm just working on all of our different initiatives. And just a quick 2-minute elevator speech on Think New Mexico for those of you who may not be familiar with the work we do. We're a public policy think tank, and we're different than a lot of think tanks that are either far on the left or way on the right. We just believe that, in a state that's 49th or 50th in a lot of these national rankings, that we ought to focus on solutions rather than political ideologies. And so with that, we've got a board of Democrats and Republicans and independents whose sole purpose is really to just see our state propel forward in a lot of these low national rankings and all the different issues that we deal with. And so we're best known for working on a variety of issues. Some of the most well-known ones are repealing the tax on food, obviously. Most recently, we were able to establish a program called the New Mexico Work and Saves Act. We worked with some organizations on that to basically establish a sort of retirement account where the state would sponsor that and oversee that, but allow employers to offer it to their employees where they don't have retirement accounts there. And most recently, I'll talk about a little bit more about this later, but we were able to get capital outlay, public infrastructure, transparency across the finish line so that you now will know what particular infrastructure projects were sponsored by which legislators. And so that really helps with that. The first topic I'll briefly go over is one of our most recent ones, which has to do with predatory lending. And so we put out this report. As you can see, it's got this shark with these people in the middle on the wheel, basically just turning their wheels, trying to catch up on loans. And if any of you want a copy of our report, feel free to email myself. I'll give you my email and I can go ahead and get that out to you. But in that report, we really highlighted how New Mexico is one of the highest states with the highest interest rates. So right now we're at 175% on small loans. We're trying to lower that to 36%. And what's interesting is that 85% of these small predatory lenders in our state are from out of state. So you've got essentially $220 million in fees and interest that are going to these loan companies out of state. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars that could be spent here right in our state to support our local businesses, stimulate our economy. And so last year we had a bill that was called Senate Bill 66. We also worked with a coalition of members called the Fair Lending Coalition of New Mexico that involved a lot of other groups. So we're not the only ones working on this particular issue. But we looked at this 36% cap, and the 36% cap really comes from the Military Lending Act. So the federal government basically imposed the 36% interest rate for loans, saying that, it's good enough for our military members. And we say, well, if it's good enough for them, it should be good enough for all New Mexicans. And so that's where we get the 36% from. A number of other states have also implemented. If we look at Montana, South Dakota, Virginia, they've all capped their interest rates at 36% as well. Illinois just signed a 36% rate. as well. So New Mexico is sort of getting left behind when it comes to, allowing these exploitation of, these triple digit interest rates for New Mexicans. So last year with this particular initiative, we had a lot of opposition from, of course, the small loan lenders. It's, my 7 years of doing this type of work, I've never seen a particular issue have so many different lobbyists against it. In fact, I think there were probably 15, 20 different, people speaking in committee against our bill in the interest of keeping these lenders around. And so, it's got a lot of money behind it. But we've been trying to counter the arguments from them. Their basically argument is that if we get rid of the 175% and we allow 36% interest rates, that will dry up access to credit for low-income New Mexicans. They'll have nowhere to go. Contrary to that, we counter that by saying, well, you've got a lot of credit unions that are in a lot of these places who have testified that they will come in and fill in the market where these small loan predatory lenders will leave. There's also a company called True Connect, which serves around 16,000 New Mexicans. There are other small lenders like Opportune, One Main. And so that's just to sort of say, that credit won't be dried up for people who are looking for these small loans. Also, they say that these 36% cap rate, these people will turn to online lenders, which is not the case in other places where they've had this particular law. So last year, the 175%, we had a sort of a meeting in the middle. I guess they converted the bill and somehow imposed a 99% cap, which is really not workable. You would think, we could meet somewhere in the middle, but we're really strong on 36%. We think that that would work for New Mexicans, and we'll see what happens in the next legislative session regarding whether or not the governor will give us a message for that, and also if we can work with the lenders on finding a equitable rate that will work for New Mexicans. That's our 36%. I can address any questions either now or after I go through all of the different bills real quick. I'll just move on to our next topic, which is dealing with the PERA board. As you may know, the PERA board has had a lot of recent dysfunction in the news. In fact, on Saturday, there was an article that basically talked about how dysfunctional the board has been. They've been having all kinds of infighting on the board. The executive director left last year. Their CIO left recently, and also their lead general counsel left. So there are 3 positions that are missing from that organization, and they haven't been able to fill that. They haven't been able to elect the board chair. Right now, they have an interim one. So they're having a lot of issues and problems, and it's catching the attention of the legislature and the media, and we've been covering it for some time. In fact, they've been having internal lawsuits, ethics, accusations. There was even a meeting I watched where they argued about the quality of the snacks for 20 minutes. And so, when you manage a fund, a $16 billion fund, that is a significant when it comes to mismanagement of that particular board and overseeing that. So in the past, what we've proposed is bringing higher qualifications to this particular board and actually making sure that they have people who have finance background, investment backgrounds for the over 90,000 public workers and retirees who depend on this fund for their retirement. One particular thing to point out is that there was an interim investments and pension oversight committee, and they found that poor governance can cost pensions around 1 to 2% annually. And when you're looking at, $17 billion fund, that's like $170 to $340 million annually that it costs the fund. So it's really important that we get that particular board up to par, get them qualified. I think Senator Munoz had mentioned in the media that he was looking at perhaps combining ERB for the Teacher Trust Board and the PRA fund together, and sort of put that together so that we can have relevant qualifications for these board members and have a better running board for our pensions. That's the PERA fund stuff. And then the next topic is Social Security. So we were looking at repealing the tax on Social Security benefits. We're only one of 13 states in New Mexico, in the nation that tax Social Security. So there are 37 other states that don't. And out of all those states that don't tax it, that do tax it, we tax it the second harshest. And so if you look at Social Security tax, it was implemented in 1935 by FDR. And, you know, it was really meant to lift seniors out of poverty. It wasn't really necessarily implemented to subsidize state government budgets who can't manage your spending or balance things. And so, in fact, New Mexico actually didn't have a tax on Social Security benefits from 1935 to 1990. And so what happened was the legislature had to sort of cover a deficit gap of around $13 million. And so there was a single line on page 29 of this complicated 30-page tax bill in which they basically slipped it in there to tax Social Security benefits. And there was no scrutiny, no media coverage about this until basically seniors got their income taxes the next year and found out that their taxes were being taxed. And so there's no other federal benefit program like Medicare or Medicaid or food stamps that are subject to the tax. You know, you're only taxed with 401k plans and your Roth RIs when they take the money out. And it's actually a double tax because when working New Mexicans are working, the state takes the money out of your paycheck and then you're taxed again on the benefits that you receive. So it's really unfair when you think about it, because nearly 2/3 of New Mexicans have nothing saved for retirement, and about 80% of New Mexicans have $10,000 or less saved for their retirement. So when we look at this particular issue, most people who pay the tax are middle and low income individuals making less than $75,000. And that's particularly important for the 26,000 grandparents who are raising approximately 51,000 grandchildren. You know, when they've got expenses, you know, in food and medicine and taking care of other family members, they rely on that benefit not to be taxed for them to take care of these other individuals. And seniors have really, you know, suffered disproportionately during the pandemic as well. And so they shouldn't have to bear this tax burden. So we're proposing to repeal the tax entirely. They can offset it. The legislature could offset it with another tax. I know that they're looking at raising taxes. And so we're trying to make it a revenue neutral thing so that, you know, we perhaps can find the path of least resistance and get this across the finish line. Lastly, I'd like to speak about the capital outlay infrastructure reform stuff that we've been working on. So that really mostly looks at how our legislature funds public infrastructure for our state. We had a report on that one as well, but essentially what happens is each 112 legislators are allowed to spend a lump sum of money in their sole discretion and dole it out in their particular legislative districts. And so what happens with that is, you know, we were thankfully able to pass the transparency aspect of that, and hopefully that will curb a lot of misspending. But what happens now is there's really no merit-based system for how the legislature plans and coordinates, you know, these projects with local governments. There are hundreds of millions of dollars that sit idle on the sidelines and don't get spent, you know, year to year. And that's money that could be used to stimulate the economy, hire engineers and construction workers, to really get that money moving in these projects going. Actually, it will also prevent legislators from hopefully not spending small amounts of money on piecemeal funding where things don't get funded. There have been requests for zoo animals, wrestling mats, band uniforms, football helmets, and these are things that really don't qualify as infrastructure when it comes to our public infrastructure program. So that might not happen during the 30-day session. It might be something that's more relevant for a 60-day session when it comes to that, but that's something we're looking at as well. And so naturally, we'd be interested in having your support as a League of Women Voters for any and all of these initiatives. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'll type my email in the chat right now.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? We have a good number of people attending. I don't see anything right now. That was a wonderful summary. Looks like we have one. Ed Birnbaum asks, did you say that Think New Mexico is working to repeal only the state Social Security tax or also the ERA and PERA pension payments, which also seem to be double taxation?
We're only looking at repealing the state tax on Social Security benefits and have not looked at the other pension, ERB or PERA, as far as how those are particularly taxed, but strictly only on the Social Security benefits aspect.
Thank you. Also, is there any reason not to have a single board for both ERA and PERA? I guess is how you say it.
Yeah, I think that they're exploring those options. I think the Senator Munoz had mentioned that you could, by combining those particular boards, I think you would be able to create a lot of efficiency, as far as the oversight and the funds. So there is talk about doing that right now. ERB, I think they don't have an executive director as well, so it might be a good time to those funds are doing really well right now as far as those pension funds go. And so it might be a good time to explore combining those, but it really is up to the political will and appetite of the legislature and those particular agencies to see if that's something that they'd be comfortable with doing and entertaining. But it is in the works. I'm not sure it'll happen anytime soon, but it is being explored.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Any other questions from the audience? I'll turn it over to Hannah.
Well, thank you so much, Otiamba, for that very clear presentation. And I believe we were working on the predatory lending bill in the last year's legislature. I hope these things do come to pass. Very interesting.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your guys' support on that as well. And thank you.
And I'd also like to thank everyone who came today. We love to see an active and involved membership, and I believe this may have gone beyond our membership. Thank you all. We hope to see more of you, Otiamba.
Thank you. You as well. Look forward to seeing you all in person. Thank you.
Okay, and you do have a thank you in the chat to both you and to Abenido.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Well, my email is in the chat. If you want a copy of any of our reports, we also send out alerts during the legislative session. If you sign up for our email alerts, it will connect you to our a particular page where we have these action items that will connect you to our legislators on all of our different initiatives, and you can write them directly and advocate for any of these things that you wish. So if you want to sign up for those, that's available on our website.
Okay, well, thanks again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.